Let's talk about what the United States Supreme Court has said. In what is being called a landmark judgment by the U.S. Supreme Court, it will now be tougher for the minorities in America to challenge the electoral map as racially discriminatory under the Civil Rights Act. Let's give you a context to this. The Voting Rights Act, remember, is often touted as the crown jewel of the U.S. civil rights movement. The law prohibits electoral maps, which could undermine the clout of minority voters. This led to the use of race-conscious data in redistricting to protect the voting power of minorities and ensure their representation. But the provision now stands diluted as the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Louisiana's electoral map, which aimed to create an additional black majority district. This decision is being hailed by the Republicans, while the Democrats are planning to challenge it.
Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice. But we're not here to step back, we're here to fight back.
Now, one side in America is calling race-conscious redistricting as racist, while the other side calls it an important tool to provide electoral power in the hands of minorities. The former U.S. President Barack Obama criticized this ruling, saying it will systematically weaken the voting power of racial minorities. On the other hand, Donald Trump hailed the ruling and called it a big win for equal protection under the law. The Supreme Court's decision, remember, comes amid ongoing redistricting battle where Republicans and Democrats have been trying to redraw electoral maps in their strongholds to get additional seats in the Congress.
I mean, it depends. I mean, some states don't need to redraw, and some do. I mean, I know what the concept of the rule, I just haven't seen the result. Yeah, I would say generally I would think that they would want to do it. Some are greatly helped, and some, it didn't make much difference. Yeah, I would say they would do that. They have time to do it.
America, remember, heads to the midterm elections in November this year, when Republicans will try to save their majority. Thin one, but they will try to save it. While the Democrats are trying to flip the balance of power at the Capitol, both sides have been trying to achieve their aims by changing the electoral maps. The question is, whom will it help? So that's the latest as far as, this entire legal battle is concerned. Extremely important ruling that has come out of America's top court. And what are its implications, not just as far as minority representation is concerned, but also the political implications of it. Which side will it help in the midterm elections? Remember, this is coming just a few months ahead of the midterm elections. Republicans are hailing it. The Democrats are planning to challenge it, clearly sensing that they might be at the receiving end, negatively, of this entire exercise that is being carried out in multiple states. But Donald Trump, as we showed you, has hailed this. How the Democrats now plan to challenge this, how they plan to take this forward, is something that we'll have to wait and see. But as far as this entire redistricting is concerned, just a few weeks back, remember, Virginia was a state where redistricting happened, and it was a setback for the Republicans. So it's really an interesting battle that is going on at the moment. Let's try and get a better understanding of what this means. I'm joined by Mr. Richard William Painter, American lawyer and professor at the University of Minnesota Law School. He's joining us live from Minnesota at the moment. Mr. Painter, good evening. Welcome to WION. Before I get into the political implications of it, I want to understand from you how you read this ruling as far as minority representation is concerned, because there have been several people who have voiced their opinions and concerns about minority representation being reduced because of this ruling.
Yes, this ruling probably will reduce minority representation, principally African Americans. From some of the states in the South. The concern here is that the Supreme Court of the United States generally has been unwilling to intervene with respect to gerrymandered electoral maps. And yet in this case involving the Voting Rights Act, the Supreme Court struck down the map in question And so the Supreme Court is very selectively intervening with respect to the drawing of legislative districts. What the Supreme Court really needs to do is make it clear that gerrymandering, whether it's racial gerrymandering or any other type of gerrymandering, is unacceptable. We have these districts in the United States, in several states, that really make absolutely no sense, and they're simply designed in order to maximize the election of a particular party members to the United States Congress, and that's, of course, the party that controls the state legislature and the governorship. We've seen Texas do it, Illinois do it, California do it, Virginia do it. Now Florida wants to get in the act, and some of these states are Democratic-controlled states, some are Republican-controlled states, but the Supreme Court has refused to do anything to deal with the gerrymandering problem in the United States, which is a fundamental threat to our democracy. And then the Supreme Court just suddenly jumps in and intervenes in this one case where minority representation is at stake and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And that's very concerning.
Let me also get from you an understanding of how you see the political implications of this, because, you know, the midterms are around, Republicans have welcomed this, the Democrats are planning to challenge this. There has been a change in the way minorities vote as well. You know, historically, they were voting for the Democrats, but in the 2024 presidential election, we did see some of those communities incline towards the Republicans. Therefore, how do you see the political implication of this ruling?
Well, we'll see how this sorts out. There are going to be other states as well that may be affected, but we should keep in mind that this gerrymandering war we've had is one that both sides can play. And so the Democrats have gerrymandered California now and Virginia in response to the Republicans having started the most recent round of gerrymandering down in Texas. And so we're going to have both political parties trying to manipulate the system when they draw the legislative districts. Districts are going to make less and less sense. Voters who are thrust into these districts, whether Democratic or Republican, are going to be alienated from the system and think that it's designed not to assure that they are represented, but to enhance a particular political party's representation in Washington. This will lead to more voter disaffection, whether it's minority voters or other voters. And it's really very dangerous for our democracy.
You know, so the Democrats are planning to challenge this decision, Mr. Painter. One, what are their options? And two, what is the likelihood of the next verdict going in their favor?
Well, I think it's going to be very hard to challenge this decision. The Supreme Court is the highest court. They've made their decision. They could try to get new legislation through Congress, but President Trump will not sign it. What we really need to do is make gerrymandering a national issue. It's a threat to democracy, and to convince grassroots voters in both political parties that the manipulation of the political map of legislative districts to maximize a particular party's representation in Congress rather than the representation of the people in the district is a threat to democracy. And the conservative voters and liberal voters alike, Democrats and Republicans, should reject it, and we should pass legislation that would prohibit gerrymandering of districts across the country. It is a serious problem.
All right, we'll leave it there. Mr. Richard Painter, thanks very much for joining us on WION and giving us this understanding.
Thank you.